Stay informed on all the news that matters most to the military community with a subscription to Stars and Stripes Digital Access. As a subscriber, you'll enjoy unlimited access to the Stripes.com website and our Stars and Stripes mobile apps, updated 24/7 by reporters stationed at military bases around the globe. Subscribe today and enter the promo code PODCAST when signing up for a yearly subscription and receive 50% off your first year. Get exclusive access to special features, interactive articles, award-winning photography, and more. Visit stripes.com/digital and enter the promo code PODCAST to subscribe today. This is Force for Hire,
a deep dive into private military contracting and how it's transforming the battlefield.
I'm Michelle Harvin.
And I'm Desmond Ferris.
Today we're going to be hearing from Tim Lynch. I found him through his blog, Free Range International, where he detailed his time in Afghanistan, writing down his observations and thoughts while outside the wire. Tim was doing reconstruction and security work. When I asked him how many contracts he did, he guessed around 9 in the span of 12 years. But that's just a guess.
Hearing Tim talk about his time was like a whirlwind of jobs, people, and organizations. And even though he got frustrated at times, you can tell he truly loved the intensity of the work. Tim began his life in action in the service, spending 20 years in the military. But not long after he left, like most of us, he was itching to get back.
I'm a retired Marine Corps infantry officer who retired in 2000, which obviously was very poor timing. By 2003, routinely reading about my peers, guys who were my best friends, who were commanding Marine Corps battalions in Ramadi and Haditha and places like that. And I'm like, gosh, I couldn't stand it. So I sent out my CV to every PMC I could find on the internet. I got a phone call on Sunday from London and flew out the following Wednesday to sign a contract and fly into Baghdad, where I worked at the American Embassy contract. I got in the early days of contracting when the money was still reasonably good. I was at the embassy, which was really a skate job, to be perfectly honest, when the company I was working for got the bridging contract for the embassy guard force in Kabul. The Marines were currently detaching a weapons company to stand guard there. And so I stood up that contract because I was probably one of the only Americans they had that still had an active clearance. And so I stood up that contract. When we took the embassy bridging contract over, the last thing in the world the State Department diplomatic security had wanted was his Marines gone. He didn't want anything to do with this. This was forced on him by the Marine Corps, who wanted that weapons company for an upcoming deployment in Iraq. We didn't have our uniforms yet, and we didn't have our Nepalese guards. So it was like all expats, mostly South African and Brits and whatnot, in motorcycle jackets and long dusters and slouch caps. And it looked like the Hells Angels were guarding the embassy. And the ambassador, that was at the time, that was Khalilzad. He thought that was great. He thought that would look cool as shit. He's like, well, can you guys just keep on dressing like that? And the RSO was like, no, get the uniforms, right? So it was a contentious contract. It was a dangerous contract because we were living in a compound off Jalalabad Road, next to which was a municipal parking lot that filled up with trucks all day that can't go into Kabul until night because they won't let trucks into the road. Trucks full of we don't know what were backing up to the wall to our barracks containing 500 guys jammed into an old meat slaughterhouse. And I'm bringing pictures and I'm bringing this to the attention of the guys who have the contract, which is the joint venture building the embassy, as well as the RSO, going, hey, man, not only are we driving back and forth in buses, which is kind of stupid given the level of insurgency, but truck bomb? I mean, hello, I was in Beirut in 83. I'm sensitive to this kind of stuff. I hated it. And it was not the kind of Gucci pay that people think of when you're talking contracting. Unless you got a TS clearance and you're some kind of tier 1 or close and some people, unless you're in a TS cleared billet, you're not getting the big bucks. The other point to that contract, and I tried to explain this to the ambassador, to everybody who listened to me, is they didn't know what they were asking for. Their contract stipulated they wanted trained certified snipers, trained certified CQP guys to roll around in an armored truck as a react force that was never leaving the compound to begin with anyway. And they wanted all these supervisors to have TS clearances. And I'm like, why? We don't handle anything classified. And ultimately, the contract got trimmed down and all those bells and whistles got out. But the way they wrote the contract, only Triple Canopy or Blackwater could have filled it. And it would have cost them bajillions. And what they were willing to pay for was something far less. And they never needed that much stuff to begin with, in my humble opinion.
So Tim left the embassy contract and went on to a company that eventually folded. After that, he and a couple friends decided to start their own company in Kabul. Now, we'll pick up with their company's first contract.
We got the Japanese JICA, the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, and that's the USAID of Japan. We got their security contract. And unlike USAID, they put their guys in the field. And so they had 3 experts. They were doing the rice implementation project. Take them into their office. We would pick them up and bring them from the office. We would take them out to the field and stay with them in the field because they said that the Afghans were disorganized in how they planted rice. And those guys would spend hours out there replanting that stuff. I was like, oh my God. They wanted to do a rice project in Jalalabad. I had to go find a place for them to live. What happened was in 2007, I go down to Jalalabad and start scouting out places to stay. The Japanese JICA is not USAID. JICA is not about spending money to buy a guest house, fortify it. They're not interested in that. They prefer to rent a house that other internationals are already renting and not have that burden. Just an upfront cost that they can plan out because there's not an extra yen in one of their accounts at the end of the year. I find the Taj. The Taj compound was actually in a hamlet called Bagrami, about 5 miles to the west of the Jalalabad city center. It was a gigantic 14-foot wall, as the Afghan compounds have. 3 guest house, each guest house averaging about 7 rooms, 2 facing a beautiful lawn. On that lawn, we had an outdoor grill and a bar area, and then an in-ground saltwater pool. It was nice too. Because like in the summertime, it's 110, 115 at night. But if you drain the pool and fill it from the groundwater that day, the pool's maybe 70. Oh, you want to talk about nice. My son, after he graduated high school, tended bar for a summer. He and I would smuggle in booze from Dubai because if he knew the contract air schedules, you could do it. And then I'd get beer from Kabul, and I'd just say, here, you just keep everything. And it paid for his first year of school, University of Colorado. It was killing it at that bar at the time. I had a sort of the permission from the mayor of Jalalabad because my contract was cleaning out Kerez's irrigation canals and the drainage canals. That was what I was doing with USAID. So I worked for the mayor. But you would think that the bar would be what the locals would be excited about, but it wasn't. It was the Western women swimming in the pool. So we had 40-foot multiple bamboo shades put up. And when the drivers came and dropped off the guests, we had them shuttled into another room where we served them chow and tea and stuff because we didn't want them sitting there staring at the women who were drinking. And I mean, we had, good music, dancing, all kinds of stuff. That place was packed. It was quite an interesting setup there. We get through the winter without a generator. But it's now May, and it's 100 degrees out, no generator. This isn't working out too well for us, right? I've been talking to MIT. First, I get this emails from a woman named Sherry Lassiter, who's a coordinator. Then I start getting emails from a grad student named Amy Sun. And the first thing she asks is, can I get this stuff through customs and how? And I send her emails back explaining, yeah, I can do it. This is what it's going to cost because I got to rent a truck and stuff. I told her which Kabul outfit to buy from, and she goes, okay, I'm on it. 2 days later, a generator shows up. They install the thing. Our ACs are working just in the nick of time. And then in June, up shows Amy's son and Kelly Pettijohn. And all the emails she'd been sending me were beginning to sound more like directives you would get from like your regimental commander kind of thing. And I remember when she first arrived, I looked at her. She's a Chinese-American girl. She's an engineer, MIT. She's a rocket scientist. I mean, her specialty is the transition of rockets out of water into free flight over air. That's what she studies. And fluid dynamics is what she's getting her PhD in. So a legitimate rocket scientist, about 5'1", she shows up and co-ops everybody. Like I told her, I said, Amy, a guy like me and a car and a driver, that's like $1,000 a day in Afghanistan. And she just laughs at me. She goes, I don't have any money. She goes, I'm not paying you, but be ready to go at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I got a lot of things I want to do. We had spent the summer running these people all over to get this thing rolling. Gear comes in. Her and Kelly Pettijohn set all this stuff up. We have to muscle it in. Me and like 5 Afghan guys muscling a shop bot. That's got to be 2 tons. We muscle this stuff in. Get it all connected. The next day, I called her walking down the road to Bagrami, like a local hamlet. I'm like, no, wait, now let me get the rifle. Let me come with you. And Jesus, don't just walk around by yourself. But she would. And she'd walked, and she'd already set up a deal with the head man, and the mothers were up supervising. And the kids, I mean, within 2 weeks, they're building little shop bots, having shop bot wars. And they're talking to kids in Iceland, talking to kids in South Africa. It was friggin' amazing. And then the fab folk are volunteers who are former MIT grads, mostly, not all. And they came from South Africa, from Iceland, from America, from England. These guys all show up. The Fab Lab gets a donation of these little handheld, real cheap computers you can run on the internet that have Pashto keyboards. They get a regular modem from they bought with them. But they would shoot that our internet signal down to the Bagrami school, and those kids within 2 months of them arriving, they're having computer classes in Pashto. You've never seen anything like it. And Jalalabad is not exactly that chill. I mean, you still hear the IEDs going off. You still hear rounds coming in all the time. They still rock it in the base. I mean, it's not exactly that chill. It's chill enough, but not that chill, if you know what I mean. They had to threaten to drop her out of MIT to get her to go home. She stayed for months at a time. DARPA funded that the fat pipe internet that ran the all the equipment in that MIT Fab Lab that was shot out to the teaching hospital, Nangarhar University, the local schools. That fat pipe internet came through a gator expeditionary gator ball. A gator ball it's like a gigantic green beach ball with a microwave antenna that's pointed up. So they put a proxy server in, which they of course looked at. The fact that it was spreading this out throughout the city was of interest to them because they're getting in data. So the girls go down to the proxy server and log in, put a monitor, want to see where everybody's looking at. Point. Oh my God, more pointed. Then you do the same when you lit up the Nangarhar University. Jihad. Holy smokes, It took weeks before anybody at that teaching hospital was looking for anything related to medicine on that damn thing. That's just the way it goes. The kids were asking Islamic kids in Norway how they break the fast if the sun doesn't set up that part of the world. They never heard of that. It's the number one question on these kids' mind. Imagine if you were able to sustain that and seed those all over the country. I think you change the face of how these things work. And it's also an interesting way of leveraging contract. The Taj existed because I had a contract from USAID to fix the infrastructure of Jalalabad city. That's how that existed. Before that, it was the UN. So whether it's me or the UN, the person involved is irrelevant. Leveraging that and running complementary programs off that makes, to me, all the sense in the world. And we're talking cost efficiency. And this is a side of contracting that people don't see or think about or consider, because this is not the Gucci. This is the high risk stuff. It's not the high pay stuff. The high pay contracts are behind the wire with the TS crunching numbers or analyzing data. That's where you make your big bucks. This is high risk to little to no gain as far as financial rewards go. But it's a hell of a lot of fun. Jalalabad was the place to be. When I took my son out for the last time, when we were flying, I said, "Son, you're not going to come back. I can't bring you back. I'm going to Lashkar. You can't come there." And he goes, "Nah, I don't think I should." And that's after, and he'd been there for a year. So it was sad, but because I loved Afghanistan. I mean, obviously I have lots of very close friendships with Afghan peoples. And I spent a lot of time. I lived in Mazar Sharif for a while. I lived down in Lashkar, which sucked. But I had some good Afghans surrounding me there too, As I look around at a whole Afghanistan, I saw areas where there were excellent battalions doing excellent things, where there were crappy battalions doing crappy things, and where some of the things that I saw and heard about, to me, sounded so far outside the bounds of what I would have considered legitimate behavior that I felt compelled to. In an originally poorly written blog, I've gotten better at that writing stuff. I felt like just voicing my frustration at what I was seeing. Though it's part of our security routine, right? We'd go out to anything that we see that popped up, oil tanker attack, ambush. We'd go out there and look around, right? So we'd go out, we'd talk to the guys if one of the sites, one of the static posts along the Kabul-Jalalabad road reported they were attacked and fired all their rounds and beat off this terrific attack. We'd go, we'd take pictures of the blockhouse. We'd talk to the guy, I didn't know Hazara guys, talk to the police, compare the picture to the last time we were there, see if there's any new bullet holes. And I was able to document that kind of stuff, which made us situationally aware enough to know that when the incidents started going near us that were clearly Taliban related, and some of which were clearly targeting possibly us, we at least had the ability to ratchet up our posture And we did. And with that, no more bar, no more girls in the swimming pool. That crap has to stop immediately once it ratcheted up to that kind of tension, because then you're just a target. About a month later, the Taliban got Murad, shot him out in front of his house. And I think a guy from Wired came by and took pictures of the old bar and the abandoned pool in 2012 and put them up. Yeah, make you cry. I was frustrated when I came home. When I got back, I made all the mistakes that every contractor is told to avoid. I had a not very happy second marriage. Nobody will be surprised to hear that marriage ended and every penny I ever made was left with the ex. I had a hard time adjusting. Look, I don't like talking about it much, but I was homeless for like 6 months. I was fixing to walk across the country because I didn't want to tell anybody I was homeless. I wanted to tell them I was walking across the country. I was trying to figure out a good reason to do it. The one thing that stuck in my mind about that particular period of time is very early on, I made the incredibly rational decision not to drink. I couldn't sleep, and drinking wasn't helping. So I said, dude, you are in existential problems here. And so I stopped drinking entirely, and I couldn't really exercise well. I wasn't in that great a shape, but I started walking at 5, then 10, then 15 miles. I was getting ready to walk across the country, I was striding up and down the Oregon coast. And that's when I started writing, because I got some things I want to say about the things that I saw. And it's better to do that through fiction, because then I can add on and make it sound even awesome. Because, as much as it sounds like I was in nonstop adventure land, my days were pretty routine and boring for the most part. I got done what I had to get done. I learned how to constructively use my time. That's why I started blogging. And my initial posts are horrible. Now I was at the bar when I was doing them. I'll give you that excuse, but they're horrible. But now I can crank out a post that sounds reasonably coherent in a couple hours in the morning, and that's and that's what I prefer to do these days. Because I knew what was going to happen. I pretty much predicted what I'd never have a job with that level of responsibility and autonomy again. I mean, controlling that amount of money, where the stakes were so damn life and death serious. I mean, that's fun. There's an attraction to that kind of. So I knew I wouldn't ever find that. It was questionable whether I would ever find a job. I figured I'd get hammered into second divorce. I wasn't anticipating such a thorough hammering, quite frankly. So I took a beating, and I was upset. But the only person I could be upset at was myself. It wasn't like I didn't know ultimately this is going to happen. That's why I didn't want to come back. For a while there, I never thought I would. Be perfectly honest. It just didn't seem like the string of luck could hold out, but I wasn't backing down. So that's just the way it was. I go on weekly, like I said, All Marine Radio, which is a podcast run by Mike McNamara, who's a friend. He has developed this program called Post-Traumatic Winning, which he developed at the behest of his friend, our mutual friend, Dave Furness, who's currently the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Division. It is a 3-hour presentation called Post-Traumatic Winning that predicated upon the first point being, hey, you're never going to get over this. You've got to learn how to live with this. If you're talking about people having adjustment problems coming back, and I am a poster child for that, but I'm one of the very, very fortunate ones who realized I have got to not drink, that I cannot drink, that if I drink, I'm never going to make it out of this hole. And I've got to just start. It was difficult. And it's a difficult topic, but it's something that's real. That Mag does a good job of addressing, and I can't because I get emotional. Sorry, and I'd be remiss not to mention how much I believe in that post-traumatic winning. I got out of it by myself, but it was lonely.
So, Michelle, I resonate with his story a little bit. The fact that he talks about the program, and my last deployment, when I came back, the reintegration training I didn't receive. If I had gotten that, maybe, I'd have been able to cope a little bit better at the time. It's real. And the fact that he's bringing a little bit more light to this program, this plan that is helping more veterans when we might not have gotten that help.
Yeah, you can tell how much it mattered to Tim to talk about this program and how much it does help people, even though he wasn't able to get that sort of help. But I was very appreciative that he went into that time and to talk about that sort of vulnerable moment, because I think it does resonate with a lot of people and it means a lot.
We'd like to give a huge thank you to Tim Lynch for sharing his experiences with us. His blog can be found at freerangeinternational.com. Also, to learn more about post-traumatic winning, go to allmarineradio.com. In our next episode, we'll be taking a closer look at Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, where the defense industry is flourishing.
The U.S. considers Saudi Arabia a strategic partner within the Middle East. That means that they want the Saudi military to be, well-equipped to pursue its interests in the region as far as maintaining regional stability.
Don't forget to subscribe. And while you're there, leave us a review. You can also let us know your thoughts at podcast@stripes.com. Also, follow us on Twitter for updates at Stars and Stripes.
Force for Hire's supervising editors are Bob Reed and Terry Leonard. Digital team lead and editor is Michael Darnell.
Thanks for listening.
This is Force for Hire.